You've probably heard that being an investment banker is hard because you work 100 hours a week and there's no work-life balance. But you've also heard that they make a lot of money. I'm talking $150,000 to $200,000 plus as a 21-year-old right out of college. And Hollywood might have given you the impression that investment bankers are constantly shouting on the phone, they're doing a bunch of cocaine.
Cocaine is the perfect drug for bankers.
And dating gold diggers who later become their trophy wives. Is there any truth to this though? In this video, I'm going to talk about what investment bankers actually do. And two, I'm going to talk about what does this actually mean in terms of the day-to-day of the job? 3, examine whether investment bankers truly work 100 hours a week. 4, the one secret downside that no one ever talks about. And 5, if you stay until the last part of this video, I'll give you my honest opinion on whether investment banking is actually worth it. Okay, so now if you're new here, I'm Sam. I'm a former technology investment banker at Morgan Stanley. And today I run Wall Street Mastermind, where we've helped over 1,100 students who have collectively secured offers from every single bulge bracket and elite boutique bank on Wall Street. Now, needless to say, I know a thing or two about investment banking. So let's dive in. So first, let's talk about what investment bankers actually do. So when most people hear the term investment banking, they assume the job has to do with either investing in stocks or managing money for wealthy people. But it actually has nothing to do with that. Instead of advising high net worth individuals, investment bankers actually advise companies, institutions, and governments with raising money. And they also advise companies on mergers and acquisitions, which is a fancy way of saying the buying and selling of businesses. Now, when it comes to raising money, there are typically 2 ways for a company to raise capital from investors. One, you can either borrow the money and agree to pay it back with interest, which would be a debt capital raise, right? Or 2, you can also sell a percentage of your business to your investors in exchange for their money, in which case you don't have to pay them back, but instead you let them participate in the future upside of your business. So investment bankers help advise with both ways of raising money, which is very important because without any capital, most businesses would not survive for long, okay? Now, as for the mergers and acquisition side of things, also known as M&A, the easiest analogy to understand here is the real estate agent that you use when you want to buy or sell a house. The agent will help you find the right property, give you advice on how much the property is worth, help you structure the terms of the transaction, and negotiate with the other party, right? Now, when a company wants to buy or sell to another company, they hire an investment bank for the same role, finding an ideal buyer or seller, valuing the company that's being sold, structuring the terms of the deal, and negotiating with the other party. Now, it's very similar, except instead of dealing with a property that may be worth 6 or 7 figures, you're buying or selling an entire business that could be worth upwards of, millions, if not tens of millions, or sometimes upwards of billions or tens of billions of dollars, right? And these transactions also impact a lot of people, including the company's customers, vendors, employees, so on and so forth. So in other words, these transactions are highly strategic, but they can also be extremely complicated, okay? So now that you understand what investment bankers do at a high level, let's talk about what investment bankers actually do on the day-to-day. So at the most junior level, which is going to be what's relevant for those of you who are watching this, you spend most of your time either working in Excel or PowerPoint. Now you use Excel to build financial models that project out the future performance of the businesses that you're doing a deal for. And you then assign a value to that business based on your analysis, right? You might also try to model out what 2 different companies might look like if they were to combine, okay? And how the combination might affect their future financial performance. And once you finish your analysis in Excel, you will summarize your findings and transfer the outputs over to PowerPoint, where you can create very pretty presentations that usually have lots of charts and graphs. And these presentations are then used by senior bankers to go and present your findings to C-level executives like CEOs and CFOs for the clients that you're advising, as well as their board of directors. Okay, basically all the major decision makers at these companies that will be making decisions based on the advice that you're giving them. So now, to be able to work on something that's as consequential as, either a capital raise or a mergers and acquisition transaction at such an early age in your career, that's pretty cool, right? So what's the catch? Well, let's talk about that 100-hour work week. So if you read enough of the headlines in the media, you'll often see how sensationalized it really becomes, because people will have you think that investment bankers regularly work 100-hour weeks, which if you do the math, it actually implies that you're working more than 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. So imagine working from 10 a.m. to midnight every day, 7 days a week, without ever taking a day off, even on the weekends, right? This obviously wouldn't be very sustainable in real life and is very, very far from the truth. Okay. So do investment bankers pull 100-hour work weeks every now and then? Yes, absolutely. Especially when there's a live deal that is about to cross the finish line, there can be a lot of work in that final stretch before the deal closes. But there are also lots of slower weeks mixed in between as well, right? And if you look at the actual average hours per week based on survey data, most of the top investment banks out there average somewhere between 65 to 80 hours a week. Okay. And that's 20 to 35% less than what the media would like you to think. Furthermore, you might think that if investment bankers are working so much, it must be because they have so much work to do that they must be heads down, working super hard the entire time when they're in the office, right? But this is just not true. So, because as a junior banker, you spend a lot of time sitting around waiting for comments from your senior bankers on the work that you've done the previous day. So during the day, the senior bankers are out of the office, they're meeting clients and trying to win business. So oftentimes you won't get your feedback until late afternoon or early evening when they're back in the office, at which point your work really starts, right? And so that's also why you end up staying in the office until so late, because a lot of the times you aren't starting to do the real work until most of your friends are already getting off work, right? And so the first half of your day is usually a lot more chill than the second half. Like that's for sure. Okay. And that's just speaking from personal experience and the experience of, the hundreds of clients that we've had that are now working in banking. Now, if the hours aren't actually as bad as people say they are, then what's the actual downside to investment banking that you're not thinking about? Well, it's actually not the hours itself, but it's the unpredictability of when the work will pop up. So what do I mean by this? Well, if I told you that you had to work 80 hours a week, but you knew exactly when you'd have to work, like let's say you work from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday to Friday, and you get Saturday off. Okay, that's roughly 80 hours. Well, you would still be able to make plans with your friends or your significant other to go out either late Friday night after you're off work, go out all of Saturday when you know you don't have to work at all. Like you have that predictability, right? This is how it is for most people who work like a regular 9-to-5 job, right? They know exactly when they have to work and when they don't. But because investment banking is a client servicing business, and because your clients are very important people who are very demanding, as they should be, since you are advising them on some of the most important transactions their companies will ever work on for very large dollar values, well, you basically have to be at their beck and call, right? Like if your client's CEO asks you for an analysis on Friday night and they say, hey, I want to see this first thing Monday morning, well, chances are you're going to have to cancel whatever weekend plans that you had. Okay. So in the beginning, you might still be naive enough to make plans with people that you care about, but after having to flake on them a couple of times, you'll quickly start to realize that you can't really ever fully commit to any plans until the very last minute. And if the people around you don't understand this, it could mean that you'll stop getting invited altogether, right? And so that's why I said the actual hours worked is not the worst part. It's actually the unpredictability of the hours. All right. Now, so with all of that said, is investment banking worth pursuing as a career? Now, I will obviously say this. I am biased when it comes to this because not only did I do investment banking myself, but currently my life's mission is also to help as many people break into investment banking as possible. And I obviously wouldn't be doing this for a living if I didn't believe in it. But I will say this, investment banking is not for everyone. If you don't enjoy working with numbers, or you don't find it interesting to analyze and work with some of the most successful companies in the world and learn how they operate in the process, then this job is probably not for you, okay? And if you can't function on very little sleep every now and then, or you don't handle pressure well, and you tend to make lots of mistakes when you're in a highly stressful environment, then this job is probably not for you, okay? If you aren't really willing to sacrifice your work-life balance for a couple of years while you're still young and you don't have a lot of obligations yet, you're single, you're not married, you don't have kids, then this job is not for you. But if you don't have any of these issues, then you have to ask yourself, how is it that the top investment banks in the world are able to hire just 1% to 2% of their applicant pool each year? Well, the reason is they can be so selective because a lot of people want these jobs, right? Like, so a lot more people want these jobs than there are actually jobs available, right? So then, okay, why do we think so many people want to work in investment banking despite the long hours and the unpredictability that we've talked about? Well, there are several reasons, right? The first is the extremely high pay, right? Again, you can make between $150,000 to $200,000 plus as a first-year analyst right out of college, right? That's 3 to 4 times more than what the average college grad in the United States makes today. And now if you stay in banking long enough and you climb the ladder and make it all the way up to managing director, which is kind of the highest level you can get to, it's not far-fetched at all for you to be making 7 figures a year pretty consistently if you're good at your job. Okay. Now that's obviously very appealing because some people will never make that ever in their entire life, no matter how long they work, right? The other thing is it's also very prestigious, right? Because again, it's extremely selective. So if you're a part of the 1% to 2% of the people who are able to break in, that signals to future employers that you are really the cream of the crop, right? It also signals to, business schools that you are the cream of the crop if you decide you want to go to business school later. So that's very appealing as well. Speaking of which, that prestige then sets you up with amazing exit opportunities, right? There are actually even higher paying jobs than investment banking out there in industries like private equity and hedge funds and venture capital. These are industries that hire almost exclusively from investment banking though. So in other words, you aren't even eligible for these jobs unless you've already done investment banking before, right? So in other words, investment banking is one of the best stepping stones that you could have to improve your career trajectory massively. And we haven't even mentioned the amazing network you will develop from working in banking, where you get to constantly rub shoulders with executives and board members while working with highly intelligent and ambitious colleagues, most of whom will go on to be very successful in their own right. Right. And the skill development, whether it's hard skills like analyzing companies or learning how to think like a professional investor or financial modeling, to soft skills like work ethic and time management skills and being a team player and performing under pressure. Speaking from personal experience, I can honestly say that I have benefited from all of these things. And if I hadn't spent the 3 years I spent in investment banking at the very beginning of my career, I would not be nearly as successful today. Okay. And starting my career in investment banking literally changed my life, helping me go from someone who grew up in an immigrant family that didn't have a lot, and where we were always stressed out about money, to now achieving financial freedom and being able to provide for my wife and 2 kids without ever having to worry about money. It's not an exaggeration to say that investment banking changed my life, which is why I'm so passionate about helping other people break in as well. So I hope this video helped you learn more about exactly what investment banking is. It's not anywhere close to being as crazy as what Hollywood and Leonardo DiCaprio wants you to think. And like any other job out there, it comes with its own set of trade-offs, but without a doubt, it is one of the best career options out there for the hardworking and ambitious students today. All right. So if you ever need help breaking into this extremely selective industry, please don't hesitate to reach out to our team. Otherwise, if you found this video to be valuable, please hit the like, subscribe, and share button so that YouTube will show you more of our future videos as well. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and until next time.